Hi and welcome to Ryvis Rambles, where I talk about whatever the fuck I want. And today I want to talk about, hands down, try to change my mind, the best story to ever exist, the UNTAMED. If you don't know it yet, then buckle up. You're in for a wild but very satisfying ride. Even though I'd recommend watching the actual drama first because I'll dive deep into spoilers with no shame whatsoever. You can watch the drama on YouTube for free, link in the description below. But to give you a brief rundown, it's about Wei Wuxian who, after being reborn in a new body, meets an old acquaintance, Lan Wangji. Together, they solve a mystery and grow very close. If you're only interested in my opinion, you can jump to this part, but I'd highly recommend watching the entire video. I hope it won't get too long because I already have a few sequel videos planned. First of all, I want to say how impressed I am with myself for how considerably brief I managed to keep the summary considering how complex the story is. And second of all, I have to preface that each character has multiple names, but I will only be using one of them, and sometimes it'll be the personal name, which would be considered rude, but it's the easiest for me to pronounce. For example, I will call the main characters Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji, Wei Ying and Lan Zhan respectively. Also, a group of people cultivating the same path or skills are called a sect, the members of which aren't necessarily blood related. The founders of a sect and their blood relatives are the clan within a sect. At least that's how I understand it for this story. So the terms clan and sect in this context have nothing to do with the mafia or shady religious groups. Just a little FYI. Now let's get into it. The story starts with the death of the main character, Wei Ying. Isn't that exciting? However, Wei Ying awakes in Mo Xianyu's body 16 years later due to a sacrificial ritual, and conveniently enough, just looks like his old self, except he has scars on his arms. But don't worry, he wears a mask, so no one recognizes him, just like Superman with his glasses. So Wei Ying is currently at Mo Village, where, as chance would have it, the Gusolan clan, a very prestigious sect in this universe, is present as well to exorcise evil spirits. The evil spirit, a sword ghost, kills the Mo family one by one, and Wei Ying notices that one of the scars on his arms disappears with each death. All but one. So Wei Ying deduces his mission is to avenge Mo Xianyu or else. It's kind of part of the deal, which Wei Ying didn't agree to, but he also wasn't asked. It's also very convenient that Mo Xianyu happened to summon Wei Ying because the way I understood it, you just summon any random spirit with a ritual, but well, plot and stuff. Anyways, the contract is that Mo Xianyu sacrifices his body to the spirit, meaning it doesn't count as possession because he gave his body willingly and his own soul basically dies. And in turn, the summoned spirit has to fulfill his final request or else the spirit also perishes for good, and no one won. So he now has to figure out who that last person is that needs to be killed. He tries to do this by laying low and ends up on a mountain where he runs into Zhang Cheng, his former sect brother, Jin Ling, Zhang Cheng's nephew, and Lan Zhan, Wei Ying's love interest. I think this is a perfect opportunity to introduce the 5 great sects in this universe: Yunmeng Zhang sect, Gusolan sect, Qing sect, Lanling Jin sect, and Qishan Wen sect. The name is a combination of their respective location and the founder's family name. Each of the 5 main sects is associated with one color, which is also represented in the sect's motif and their uniform robes. Zhang is purple, Lan is officially blue, but their robes are mainly white, Ni is mainly grey, sometimes green, Jin is yellow or gold, and Wen is red. They all have different principles and fighting techniques. There are hundreds of sects, but these are the 5 most influential. Presently, the disciples of some of these sects are on the mountain to exorcise the Heavenly Maiden, a soul-devouring god. The Lan babies and Jinling find her, but are no match for her, which is why Wei Ying protects them. He also accidentally summons Wei Ying by playing a makeshift flute. This will be important, which in turn causes the others to recognize him as Wei Ying, because only Wei Ying can summon Wen Ying. Are you keeping up? Wen Ying is a so-called fierce corpse, a violent walking corpse, and Wei Ying is notorious for being able to control those fierce corpses. But unlike your usual fierce corpse, Wen Ying has a consciousness. However, when Zhang Cheng tries to expel Wei Ying's soul, it doesn't work because, as I explained earlier, he's not a spirit that simply possesses a body, so he can't be expelled. Hence, everyone is convinced that it has to be Mo Xianyu. Zhang Cheng's whip hits Wei Ying hard enough for him to lose consciousness though, and we get a flashback to 16 years ago. Even though that doesn't really add up logically speaking, because he died 16 years ago and we jump to a point way before his death. The past begins with Wei Ying as a guest disciple at Gusolan, where he's being a menace, breaking all the rules and receiving punishment under Lan Zhan's supervision. And while he's not admitting it to himself right out of the gate, Lan Zhan loves to hate him. At the same time, the Wen clan also causes some minor trouble, costing because they're looking for the last Yin Iron shard, which the Wen clan sect leader Wen Ruhan wants to control an army of fierce corpses. So he sent his son Wen Chao and the siblings Wen Qing and Wen Ying to look for it at Gusulan. But no one really knows about their intentions yet, so life goes on for now. For example, Wen Ying gets punished real bad for breaking the rules. Sensing that Lan Zhan likes this boy, his older brother Lan Xichen points Wen Ying to the cold spring, which has healing qualities, and Lan Zhan also conveniently happens to be there. He's there to take a bath because he was essentially forced by Wen Ying to break the rules and was punished as well. While taking a bath, they're sucked into an underground cave where they learn a bit of lore about the Yin Iron and Gusulan history. Also, they're married now, because only family and significant others are allowed to touch the Gusulan's forehead ribbons, and Lan Zhan and Wen Ying are literally tied together here. Later, Wen Ying picks a fight with Jin Zishen because he's being rude to Zhang Yanli and is sent home by Lan Qiren. Full disclosure, Zhang Yanli is Jiang Cheng's sister and Wen Ying's older sibling. She's supposed to marry Jin Zishen, but he doesn't seem to have any interest in her. And Lan Qiren is Lan Zhan and Lan Xichen's uncle and caretaker because their parents are dead. Anyways, it doesn't take long until Wen Ying finds another way to pester Lan Zhan again. After they told Lan Xichen and Lan Qiren about the Yin Iron they found, Lan Zhan is sent on a mission to find the other shards and seal them at Gusu so Wen Ruhan won't get them. And Wen Ying follows him. They run into Nie Huisang, who was also a guest disciple at Gusulan and is a friend of Wen Ying. He joins them against Wen Ying's will, who wants to spend some quality time with Lan Zhan.
不是我们，是我们。
They're also followed by Wen Chao and his squad, and Jiang Cheng appears too. Shortly after, they have their first encounter with the Heavenly Maiden and are rescued by Wen Qing. After all that excitement, they listen to rumors at a tavern about the Yuyang Chang clan massacre. They set out to investigate and meet Shiyang, who's just a little guy who likes to kill a bit. After capturing him with the help of Xiao Shicheng and Song Lan, two rogue cultivators who were already looking for him, they bring him to Chenghe for punishment, where they're welcomed by Nie Huisang's older brother and the sect leader of the Nie clan, Nie Mingjue. While Xu Yang is detained, Wen Chao attacks the Nie clan because they want Xu Yang and his piece of the Yin Iron back. It ends in a massacre, and Nie Mingjue has to kick out his closest follower Meng Yao for killing the Nie chief general. And the poor boy gets kicked a lot in this show, not just figuratively. Meanwhile, Wen Chao's older brother Wen Shu attacks Gusulan because they refuse to give up their piece of the Yin Iron. So he burns down cloud recesses, which is where the Lang clan resides. Shortly after the attacks, the head disciples from all main clans are chosen for the Qishan Wen indoctrination and have to participate whether they want to or not. Amongst them is Wen Ying, who, being cheeky as always, is locked into a cell with a huge-ass dog. And if there's one thing Wen Ying is afraid of, it's dogs. He literally screams like a little baby when he's confronted with one. Wen Ying doesn't learn from his pain, so he keeps being annoying. Wen Chao lets the guest disciples search for a cave that supposedly harbors a dangerous monster that turns out to be the Xuanwu beast. He basically wants the others to do all the work and to take all the credit himself. However, when they actually find the beast, the Wen sect members run away, cutting off the escape route for the others. Naturally, most of the disciples are skilled fighters, but have been robbed of their swords, so they can't really fight back. So Wen Ying distracts the beast, allowing the others to flee, and Lan Zhan helps him. Unfortunately, when the two of them try to escape themselves, they find the escape route has been destroyed by the beast. So all they can do is wait for help, but soon realize it's pointless. They recuperate as best they can instead, before defeating the beast themselves. While the situation seems rather hopeless at first, it's also very emotional and romantic. We have a lot of bonding and a little bit of jealousy happening here.
啊，你喜欢绵绵啊？
It's also cute to see how oblivious our flirty Wen Ying can be. Also, here's a very important key moment. Lan Zhan humming a song he composed and named Wang Xian to a very delirious Wen Ying. It's the same song Wen Ying was playing in the beginning when he tried to calm down Wen Ying. In the end, they're rescued after all, but Lan Zhan is already gone when Wen Ying regains his consciousness. Back home, we witness the Zhang family drama that's going on. For example, Zhang Cheng's mom, Yu Ziyan, being jealous because there's a rumor that Wen Ying is Zhang Fengmian's bastard son, and she believes that Zhang Fengmian favors him because of that, when in truth, Zhang Fengmian only adopted him because he was good friends with Wen Ying's parents, who sadly are already dead. A while later, when Chao's bitch Wang Lingjiao, and she really is a bitch, she's written to be hated, picks a fight with Yu Ziyan. When Yu Ziyan fights back, the Wen clan takes it as a personal insult and attacks the Zhang clan. Yu Ziyan then sends the kids away and the remaining Zhang clan is massacred. The kids were supposed to escape, but after hiding, Zhang Yanli, Jiang Cheng and Wei Ying run back and forth and back. Sadly, Zhang Cheng's parents are dead and he loses his core. When Wen Ying tries to rescue Zhang Cheng, Wen Ying helps them escape. Wen Qing, his sister, shelters and heals them. They search for a way to restore Zhang Cheng's core and find one. They then devise an elaborate plan to give Zhang Cheng back his core. Wen Qing is hesitant, but helps after all. While Wen Qing executes the plan, Wen Ying is caught by the Wang clan and dropped on burial mounds, where he becomes the master of demonic cultivation, which means he cultivates resentful energy instead of spiritual energy, which he can't use anymore for reasons. He comes back from the dead after 3 months and seeks revenge. When Lan Zhan and Chang Cheng, who were searching for Wei Ying while also fighting against the Wang clan, finally meet Wei Ying again, they're shook. Using resentful energy takes a toll on Wei Ying's body and soul. It rhymed. Lan Zhan notices changes in Wei Ying and tries to warn him, but Wei Ying takes offense, which is basically just a big misunderstanding, but Lan Zhan sucks at communication, so here we are.
蓝忘机，你一定要在这个时候跟我过不去是吗？你以为你是谁？你以为你们姑苏蓝氏是谁？
Wei Ying misinterprets Lan Zhan's intentions and firmly believes they hate each other. The 4 main sects work together against the Wen clan's tyranny and take them out during the so-called Sunshot campaign. Meng Yao, who was a traitor working for the Wen clan after being kicked out by Nie Mingjue, kills Wen Ruhan and finally gets acknowledged by his shit dad. Meng Yao, Nie Mingjue and Lan Shichen become sworn brothers. The Jing clan becomes a new chief sect, basically taking the Wen clan's spot, and Zhang Cheng is the new sect leader of the Zhang sect. The Zhang clan is invited by the Jin clan for a hunt on Baifeng Mountain, because the Jins are still trying to marry their son Jin Zixuan to Zhang Yanli. But this hunt is only worth mentioning because of Lan Zhan's soulmate confession. After the whole Wen conflict is over, Wei Ying tries to keep a low profile because he doesn't want others to notice that he can't use spiritual energy anymore, among other things. But people deem his behavior rude and he starts to attract negative attention.
身为世家弟子，佩剑乃是殊荣，姚某知为公子素来不羁，可是如此减慢，未免有些托大轻浮吧。
All of which worsens when he wants to help the Wen survivors after a chance encounter with Wen Qing, who's looking for her brother, Wen Ying. Certain that the Jins are involved in Wen Ying's disappearance, Wei Ying presses Jin Zixuan's cousin. These are entirely different names and completely easy to remember. What are you talking about? He presses Jin Zixuan for an answer during what's essentially the Baifeng Mountain Hunt after party. Soon after finding Wen Ying's corpse, Wei Ying revives him as a fierce corpse and flees with the Wen survivors. Lan Zhan tries to stop him, but can't. Wei Ying leads the Wen survivors to the burial mound, knowing full well no one would dare follow them to that haunted place. Now that the Wen clan as the main enemy is extinguished, the 4 main clans turn against Wei Ying, not only because of his shady tricks, which they didn't seem to mind during the Sunshot campaign, but also because he helped the remaining Wen survivors.
那天，在百家花宴那么大的场合，他当着面说翻脸就翻脸，说走就走。
With the Jin clan being the new most influential sect, Jin Guangshan, who's Jin Zixuan and Meng Yao's dad, becomes the new but much more subtle tyrant, meaning he wants Yin Iron for safekeeping, which makes him no better than Wen Ruhan. Jin Zixuan and Zhang Yanli finally marry after much back and forth and get a child, Jin Ling. Zhang Cheng visits Wei Ying at the burial mounds, shocked by Wei Ying's experiment to restore Wen Ying's consciousness. Due to Wei Ying's ill reputation, Wei Ying and Zhang Cheng stage a fight against each other so that Wei Ying is officially considered a defector from the Zhang sect and can cut all ties and implications. Sometime later, Wei Ying and Lan Zhan accidentally meet in Yulin. While Wei Ying spends some time with Lan Zhan and Wen Yuan, who's apparently the only one child that survived, Wei Ying suddenly has to rush back to the burial mounds because Wen Ying finally awakened, meaning the restoration of his consciousness was a success. Unprecedented. A bit more time passes and Wei Ying is invited to Jin Ling's first month celebration. On his way, he's ambushed by Jin Zixuan, the cousin. As he defends himself, he kind of loses control over Wen Ying and accidentally kills Jin Zixuan, who was trying to defuse the situation. Everyone, including Wei Ying, is devastated because as much as he hates Jin Zixuan, he prioritizes his sister's happiness, and she loves that guy for whatever reason. The Wen siblings sacrifice themselves to absolve Wei Ying from their sin. However, the other Wen survivors are killed as well, while Wei Ying sneaks into Nanling to see how Zhang Yanli is doing. Then there's the pledge rally, where the sects form an alliance against Wei Ying. Wei Ying crashes that rally, and the final battle ensues in which Wei Ying dies for real. But Zhang nearly dies first in an attempt to protect Wu Ying. Lan Zhan, who by this time is very aware of his feelings, tries to save Wu Ying to no avail. And we jump back to the present, 16 years later. See how it doesn't add up? Everything I just mentioned didn't happen in just 1 year. Else it means that the year Wu Ying visited Gusu as a guest disciple is the same year he died. Anyways, they investigate the sword ghost. The spirit points them into the direction which they follow and leads them to the Nia family's ancestral hall. They run into Jin Liang and later save him from a curse. They also run into Zhang Cheng, who recognizes Wu Ying after the mask falls off, but also because he's scared of dogs, because only one person in all of China could possibly be scared of dogs. Zhang Cheng wants to take Wu Ying back home and punish him, but Jin Ling sets him free because he doesn't know it really is Wu Ying and thinks his uncle has gone insane. Then we have a small treat, the infamous drunk Lan Zhan episode. Alcohol is forbidden in Gusulan, hence Lan Zhan is a lightweight. Just one sip of wine and he's a goner. Honestly, it's worth watching the whole drama for this episode alone. The next destination is Yi City, where they run into the juniors and meet Xu Yang again. They also learn that Xiao Xingchen and Song Lan are dead, and we get a flashback to the happy past. Meaning Xu Yang and Xiao Xingchen, not Xiao Xingchen and Song Lan. Don't get me wrong. Xu Yang wants Wu Ying to fix Xiao Xingchen's soul, but it's not possible. And then Xu Yang is killed by Lan Zhan. After that whole ordeal, Wu Ying and Lan Zhan head to Lanling together with Lan Qichen, where Wu Ying finds something unexpected in Meng Yao's chamber, near Ming Jue's head, and with it, the truth. The entire past of Ming Yao and Ming Jue is revealed, how they met, how they fought, and how Ming Yao killed him, because Ni Ming Jue remained suspicious of Ming Yao even though he killed Wen Ruhan, while Lan Qichen believes in him and continuously gives him the benefit of the doubt. Unfortunately, Wu Ying's identity is exposed, meaning that now the whole world knows he's back.
诸君千万小心，他把他的剑拔了出来，他一定就是夷陵老祖魏无羡。
Before that, they still thought it was Mo Xuanyu, even though some of them already had their suspicions. And much to Wu Ying's surprise, Lan Zhan escapes with him. Lan Qichen condones his brother's behavior and allows him to hide Wu Ying in his room.
是我让忘机带你回来的。
However, he remains doubtful of Ming Yao's guilt and wants to investigate himself.
能否允许我更谨慎一些，再做出判断？
In the meantime, Wu Ying, Lan Zhan, and third wheel Wen Ying visit burial mounds at the request of Lan Qichen due to a sudden rise of fierce corpses, where they run into the juniors again. The other sects appear as well and try to shit-talk Wu Ying, who takes the hate and the blame but also says he can't change the past.
我没有做过的，我不想硬扛。
As a wise person once said, don't mind the past, do better in the future. That person was me, in my novel, which isn't published yet. Or is it? If it is, I'll just link it below. However, when they realize they lost their spiritual powers, trying to pin it on Wu Ying, and are cornered by walking corpses, Wu Ying is the only one who can help them. Not only because his cultivation is based on resentful energy, but also because, as I mentioned before, he can control fierce corpses. Also, it's revealed that Su She, this apparently random guy, is Meng Yao's henchman and lured everyone into this trap. He also did some other shit here and there for Meng Yao, but I didn't mention it, so it doesn't matter now. Once everyone's managed to escape, they all take a break at Yumeng, the Zhang clan's residence, without Su She, naturally. And here some more truth is revealed. For example, that Meng Yao paid prostitutes to fuck Jing Guanshan to death. The prostitutes weren't comfortable with it, but were forced to do it anyway. It's a sick kind of revenge, and I feel sorry for the prostitutes, but in all honesty, Jing Guanshan had it coming. After the revelations, the turns have tabled and the clans shift their focus away from Wu Ying, wanting to attack Meng Yao. Wu Ying and Lan Zhan have other worries though, being gay, strolling around Lotus Pier. Zhang Cheng is offended by their lovey-doveyness, they have a fight, and some more truth is revealed by Wen Ying, namely that Zhang Cheng's new core is Wu Ying's old core, which is why Wu Ying can't use spiritual energy anymore and cultivated resentful energy instead. This revelation completely derails Zhang Cheng's sanity. Lan Zhan then escapes with Wu Ying and third wheel Wen Ying. Back in Lanling, Wu Ying discovered a land deed in Meng Yao's chamber for Yunping City in Yumeng, so they follow that lead and find a Guanyin temple. They want to sneak a peek at night, but are discovered thanks to Jin Liang and held hostage, aka their powers are sealed, by Meng Yao. Lan Qichen is there too, and Zhang Cheng arrives late to the party with a phenomenally dramatic entrance. fights Meng Yao but gets wounded so badly that he can't move well enough to continue. Su She, who's also there, reveals his envy of Lan Zhan and his talent, which only shows that he misinterprets Lan Zhan's aloof demeanor as arrogance. Anyways, Meng Yao's people are digging for something, but no one knows what. Well, I do. It's Niu Mingju's body. They're digging for his body. Lan Xishan finally has to admit that everyone was right about Meng Yao and is deeply shocked by the truth. He still gives him one last chance because, as Meng Yao likes to say,
若不是万不得已，我为什么要去做？
and it's kinda true. Once the situation is more or less under control, Niu Huisang claims Meng Yao moved suspiciously and Lan Xichen kills him with no hesitation. And with his eyes closed? This was a bit off-putting at first, but on second thought, I guess he didn't want to look at the love of his life while stabbing him in the heart. The temple gets destroyed and Lan Xichen is willing to die with Meng Yao, but the latter pushes him away at the last second. Meng Yao was adamant that he didn't do anything for real this time before he died, causing the others to doubt Niu Huisang's words.
你这么问我，就连我也不敢确定了啊。我不知道啊。
But in the end, all they can do is believe and hope that they were true. After all is said and done, Wu Ying wanders around with Lan Zhan, who's the new chief cultivator and has duties to attend to, but that's all fake. During a stroll in the woods, one of the Lan babies, Lan Zejui, catches up to them and reveals that he's Wen Yun. Wu Ying is super happy about these news because he thought Wen Yun was dead. It's also offhandedly revealed that Niu Huisang was a puppet master all along, instigating all the coincidences that pointed Wu Ying and Lan Zhan in the right direction. I can recommend watching the spin-off movie Fatal Journey, which sheds more light on Niu Huisang's character without rehashing anything from the original drama. I enjoyed the movie very much, even though it's not canon. Also, Meng Yao was the last person that needed to die to free Wu Ying from the curse, meaning the last scar on his arm disappeared. It ends with Lan Zhan calling out to Wu Ying, which apparently is the fake ending due to censorship, etc., but I'm still very happy with it, considering censorship. First of all, I love that Wu Ying can make guqin sounds with his flute, and Lan Zhan can make flute sounds with his guqin. But in all seriousness, as with almost everything I watch and read, I went into this more or less blind. I saw lots of content like Gibson fan videos, but they were all out of context and I thought it was just the fandom's interpretation of the relationship of two characters. Which is fine and happens all the time, but after the disappointments of Sherlock and Supernatural, to name two big examples, I wanted something official, something canon. And boy, imagine my surprise when I realized the series was exactly what I was looking for. I started with the webcomic because I always read about an hour before going to sleep to wind down. However, the comic wasn't finished yet, and craving for more content, I watched the anime, or donghua. The donghua wasn't finished yet either, so I watched the drama and I was hooked. I honestly didn't expect this would happen because I've tried watching Japanese and Korean dramas, but they never really caught me. And now I literally can't stop watching dramas. Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Taiwanese, Thai, you name it, I watch it. Since the drama of the Untamed was censored, I wanted to know what canonically happened, so I finally read the source. The novel, which is a big deal because I'm a slow reader. Processing words and staying focused is really hard for me, but this I inhaled. It's so well written, though that might be debatable, but it's witty, epic, well thought through. The tone just pushes all the right buttons for me. It scratched an itch in my heart I didn't know needed scratching. It's an epic, really good story with a gay, wholesome romance where none of the guys is feminized, if that makes sense. But I also love how the main focus wasn't on the romance alone, and we actually have an interesting and well thought out plot, and all characters, even the supporting ones, have layers and are important. Honestly, there are barely any characters I dislike, the main ones being Wen Chao, and as an extension Wang Lingzhao and Wen Ruhan, Jin Guangshan, Jin Zixin, and sorry not sorry, Jin Zixuan. I just can't with his tsundere attitude. I feel like he did Zhang Yali dirty, she deserves so much better, and I literally cannot fathom how she could still tolerate him after everything he's put her through. They're honestly the perfect representation of how I view most straight couples. Incomprehensible. While I don't like the Wens and the Jins for obvious reasons, they're conceited, power-hungry assholes, I like that the Jins were basically the Wens in sheep's clothing. Jin Guangshan had the same goal as Wen Ruhan. He didn't want to control an army of fierce corpses, as far as we know, but he also wanted the yin iron and the power that comes with it. Apart from them, I like all the main characters and essential supporting characters, but I still have my favorites, of course. On top of the list is, I'm sure to no one's surprise, Wu Ying. He's a morally great character and I love how he doesn't see everything as black and white. wide. While he's forced to use unorthodox methods, he's doing it for noble reasons. Of course, he's not perfect. Some of his reactions are guided by emotions, and he does have the tendency to overestimate himself, but that just makes him a human, and a very good character in my opinion. Why does he cultivate resentful energy? Because since he doesn't have a golden core anymore, he had to improvise. It's shown quite early on that he's a smart guy, and his question about resentful energy in his youth is pretty much foreshadowing his own future.
灵气而气，怨气而气。灵气处于丹符，可以劈山填海，加以利用。这怨气也可以，为何不能加以利用啊？
He was already curious about the topic, and given the circumstances, he might as well be the first one to try. But here's the catch. He's always excelled at everything he did, so he's convinced he'll be able to master the cultivation of resentful energy as well, which he did, but he didn't have as much control over it as he thought he would. Then we have him helping the Wen survivors, and I loved him for that, because it was the right thing to do. Just because their leaders were awful people doesn't mean everyone in the Wen clan is a bad person. The best examples being Wen Qin and Wen Yin. Just because your last name is Wen doesn't mean you're a power-hungry killer. Just because the worst person is crying the loudest doesn't mean they represent everyone in that community. Generalization is never a smart move. His resignation at the end, where he doesn't really care what happens to the actual villain, is also something I strongly resonated with. Once it's revealed that Meng Yao was the one behind the evil doings that had been blamed on Wei Ying after his rebirth, and the crowd discusses how to bring him to justice, Wei Ying simply opts out, strolling around his hometown with his crush. And honestly, I felt that. The more shit happens as I get older, the more I realize that none of it matters. Nothing does. This life's a joke and I can't help laugh at it lest I go completely insane. Getting hung up on every little thing just isn't worth it. It's too exhausting, and Wei Ying's probably just tired of it all after everything he's been through. And lastly, I love how charming he is and how he has chemistry with literally everyone. That's probably why he's on the top of my list, because he charmed his way into my heart as well. But funnily enough, while he is quite the confident flirt, he turns completely self-conscious when he has an actual crush. Once he realizes he has feelings for Lamoji, he starts second-guessing his actions, which he's never done before, and it's just too cute. Also, I might be mixing up the drama a bit with the novel in this characterization, but it doesn't make it untrue. Second on my list of favorites is Xu Yang, a problematic fave. Is he insane? Yes. Is he a psycho? Absolutely. But is he evil? No. There, I said it. Might be a hot take, but I don't think he's a vicious person. His actions and mental state are a result of his upbringing. He's had a traumatic past and he's never learned to process it. He masks his love with bullying. He can't comprehend and process his own feelings. He laughs his pain away because by not taking things seriously, it makes them much more bearable. The thing with Xu Yang is that he believes what he does is righteous, and it is from his perspective.
难道你的一根手指要用50多条人命来抵吗？当然。
He doesn't see himself as a villain. His actions are true to the saying, every person is the hero in their own mind. I can't believe I just quoted Tom Hiddleston. Does any of that excuse his behavior? No. But he's fictional, and that makes him a poor little meow meow that needs a hug, and I would give it to him. He's been living rent-free in my mind ever since I've watched the drama. He's also one of the 3 characters I could relate to the most, to be honest. The second one I could relate to is also the third one on my list of favorites, Meng Yao. Yep, I'm a Meng Yao and Xu Yang apologist. I made some which untamed character are you quizzes on YouQuiz, as one does, and some indicate that I might be just like him for real. At first, I rejected that idea, but the more I thought about it, I could actually see it. We do have some similarities. We're both being underestimated constantly, with only few people believing in us. We're both people pleasers, our traumatic pasts forcing us to essentially become chameleons, able to adapt to any situation we're put in, and we both made ourselves working really hard to reach a certain position in life. Well, my hurdles were much lower than Meng Yao's, and I'm still alive, so there's that. I love the plot twist of him being the main antagonist in the end. It might be a predictable plot twist, but I don't care as long as it's good. The signs were there and it all builds up to a very tragic finale. He's painfully aware of his situation, being at a disadvantage just because of his birth origin.
为什么我对人总是笑脸相迎，却未必能得到一分好脸色？而你父亲不可一世，却人人对他趋之若鹜。
Even though he's just as good as his half-brother Jin Zishen, who was born into privilege, he doesn't get the same chance because he was born to a prostitute. Why does he have to suffer the consequences of a selfish man who couldn't keep it in his pants? Obviously, everyone should get the same chance, especially if they've proven they're capable of what they're trying to achieve. But I also get the extra frustration if this chance is being denied despite sharing the same blood.
为什么明明连生辰都是同一天？ 金光山却可以在给一个儿子大办宴席庆生的同时，眼睁睁地看着他手下的人把另一个儿子从金陵台上拽了下来。
Of course, it doesn't excuse his scrupulous actions and the sacrifices he's made to achieve his goal, but to be fair, he did try the conventional way and was shunned and bullied just because he was the son of a prostitute. Which, obviously, I'm against shaming sex work, but given the context, such people were considered of low status. What bugged me the most was that he was bullied for being the son of a prostitute, as if he'd had a say in it. Not to mention that he's also the son of a renowned cultivator. The one that should have been bullied and shunned is Jing Guanshan, not only for cheating on his wife, but also for impregnating a poor woman, then casting her aside like a piece of trash and treating his own flesh and blood like dirt under his shoes. One of Meng Yao's favorite and most famous lines is, "I had no choice."
可是我真的没有办法。
And not gonna lie, I believe him. For example, he only learned about Shinsu being his sister after the engagement because her mother told him when it was already too late. And she couldn't go to Jin Guanshan because he raped her, and if that were revealed, she would have to live in shame forever because she's a woman and them was the rules. Fuck Jin Guanshan. And yes, I'm aware that my top 3 consists of problematic characters only, but what can I say? They're so well written and not entirely evil, unlike Wen Chao. But the list goes on with 3 other noteworthy characters. Lan Zhan. At first, I didn't like him as much, but that changed as the plot progressed. I guess at first I viewed him through the same lens as Wu Ying.
可惜他们不知道，自己倾慕的对象是一个冷酷无情。
He's a fuddy-duddy who sticks to the rules and doesn't talk. That's not someone I could care for. Talking to others is very hard for me, and when I'm confronted with a person who only replies with single-word answers, if at all, that's highly frustrating. That's not a problem for Wu Ying though, who literally can't shut up. So they're a perfect match, I guess. Anyway, what made me love Lan Zhan was that he fell for Wu Ying first, which was totally unexpected for me. I thought he'd be the one in denial, that Wu Ying would fall first and make Lan Zhan fall too, but it wasn't like that at all. The way I see it, Lan Zhan never was in denial, but decided to suppress it, ignore it, not act on it, until he lost Wu Ying. That's when he realized it was all a mistake. My heart aches when I think about all the pain he endured and how he was all alone with his grief for such a long time. How he secretly carried his feelings for Wu Ying and never let go of his love even after Wu Ying's death. How he was so happy to have Wu Ying back, even if it didn't show on his face, it was apparent in his actions, and refused to let go for another time. He wouldn't miss the second chance. I also love that despite Wu Ying basically representing a lot of what Lan Zhan hated in his youth, he also saw the good in him, which eventually made him fall for Wu Ying, also in his youth. When I realized that Lan Zhan must have already had a crush on Wu Ying during Wu Ying's time as a guest disciple at Gusu, I was done for. I think this right here is one of the main reasons why I fell so in love with his story, beside the actual plot. And lastly, I love that Lan Zhan never abandons his principles and still sticks to the rules he grew up with, making the occasional exception for his beloved partner. This right here is my favorite scene, by the way.
蓝魔旗，是蓝魔旗！来人了，抓叛贼！抓蓝氏叛贼！
跪下。
Next on the list is Zhang Cheng. The boy has anger issues, and much like Xiang and Meng Yao, a lot of it is rooted in his past. But unlike these two, he doesn't become a villain. He likes to appear fierce, but in truth, he's just a hurt little puppy. He's also the 3rd on my list of characters I felt connected to. Not because of the anger issues though. His own potential and talents are often overshadowed by someone else and thus overlooked by others. It's really frustrating, so I totally get it. And he loves dogs, just like me for real. And he wears purple a lot, my favorite color. Lastly, we have Wen Qing. I don't just love her because she's a badass character, but because she's a physician, the best healer in the cultivation world, and ironically a member of the most destructive or brutal clan.
你记住，温氏做的事情，不代表我们做的事情。我们世代行医，只救人，不杀人。
I just love the dichotomy of her character so much. Others I liked very much were Lan Qichen, the #1 Wang Xian shipper who's indiscriminately kind to everyone. I admire that attitude and think he's a good role model who loves to play the flute. Wen Ying, the little baby angel, Wen Zhuliu, who I think I haven't mentioned once during my summary, but my friends said he reminded them of me, so I have to put him on the list. And I also like him because he's giving office worker vibes, only doing as he's told. For example, he doesn't melt Cheng Cheng's core until he has to. And I don't think that's because he wants to do the bare minimum, but due to a lingering sense of justice. Liu Huisang, who I didn't like that much until the fucking plot twist is revealed in the very last minute, he's the epitome of work smart, not hard. He's got no strength, but he's got the brains. He's also a good comic relief. And the Lan babies, Lan Zizhi and Lan Zhangyi. I'm not the biggest fan of Jin Liang, but there's this running gag in the fandom about everyone being his uncle. His parents are Zhang Yanli and Jin Zisheng. Zheng Cheng and Wei Ying are Zhang Yanli's brothers, so that makes them Jin Liang's uncles. Wei Ying is reborn as Mo Xianyu, and Mo Xianyu is Jin Zisheng's half-brother, so that makes him Jin Liang's double uncle. Meng Yao is Jin Zisheng's half-brother, so that makes him Jin Liang's uncle. Nan Xichen and Ye Mingzhe are Meng Yao's twin brothers, so that makes them Jin Zisheng's half-brothers, so that makes them Jin Liang's uncles. Liu Huisang is Ye Mingzhe's brother, so that makes him Meng Yao's brother, so that makes him Jin Zisheng's half-brother, so that makes him Jin Liang's uncle. Lan Zhan is Lan Xishen's brother and Wu Ying's husband, so that makes him Jin Liang's uncle. I guess the only one who isn't Jin Liang's uncle is Wen Ying, unless his bond with Wu Ying is that of a brothers, and there you have it. Aside from the characters themselves, I also wanted to commend the production quality. It's fairly good for a Chinese drama. Of course, it's not on the same level as a production with lots of money. Some of the effects and cuts are still, well, let's say some of the shots and CGI could have been better. But the makeup and costumes are amazing. The actors have been the same age during the entire production, but the makeup artists did such a good job that the characters look actually younger in the past or older in the present, depending on the actor's age. I guess it's part makeup, part costume, and part acting skills. Next, I wanted to talk a bit about the storytelling. I'm a big fan of the world building in the story in general, but I also love how in-universe historical events, like the Sunshot campaign, are established without too much exposition. It's a good mix of show and tell. Then, as I mentioned before, I love how every detail and character is important and relevant to the plot. How everything that happened in the past plays into the present and actually matters. One example is Su She. He's such a peripheral character, but turns out to be very crucial. In fact, they fought him a few times and all the clues were there, but they couldn't identify him.
他是不是你们蓝氏的人啊？不是。
Another example is Xu Yang. They meet and capture Xu Yang in the past on the search for the yin shards. Later, he reappears because just like Su She, he was working with Meng Yao, and he also has something they need to solve the case. It's basically just a well-written crime story within an epic fantasy. It's all interwoven and I love it very much. Something else that had me literally jump out of my chair while watching the drama was the song. I love stories in which songs play an important role. One of my favorite genres is game music anime like Given or Gravitation. But that's not all. The song is sung by the actors. I died 1,000 happy deaths. Honestly, I could have died on the spot with no regrets. I finished the game of life. I don't know what else to do. Wei Ying plays it for the first time in the first 2 episodes. That's how Lan Zhan recognized him, because he composed it as a love song for Wei Ying, and he only ever played or sung it for Wei Ying in the cave of Xunwu. It was such a heartfelt song that it stuck with Wei Ying even after death. And then Lan Zhan has the fucking gall to name it Wang Xian.
这首曲子叫什么名字啊？
Please, I can't. This is all I ever wanted. Who said romance was dead? And lastly, I wanted to talk about the ending. In the novel, etc., it's obviously a happy ending. In the drama industry, however, it's a bit trickier due to censorship. So if I remember correctly, in Chinese BL dramas, the main couple is not allowed to have a happy ending, meaning they're not allowed to be seen happily together. But I think they solved it perfectly, and I still consider it a happy ending. Allegedly, it's just a rumor, I don't know how true it is, the ending we're shown isn't a true ending. They had to cut some of the scenes differently to pass censorship, making it seem a bit arbitrary, but there's a video on YouTube showing how it supposedly was originally cut. I link it in the description, but you should take it with a grain of salt, because I don't know how true it really is. But here's the reason why I believe in that rumor. Look at this scene, the way the camera pans out, and tell me this isn't an ending shot. Anyways, true or not, I was happy and relieved about the official ending. First of all, I think it's satisfying, even though not everyone gets what they deserve. For example, Liu Huisang is never brought to justice because no one really cared to investigate. Meng Yao was seen as the villain, he's dead, so nothing else matters. It basically ends with Wei Ying and Lan Zhan temporarily going separate ways but meeting up again. We see Wei Ying from behind, Lan Zhan calling out his name, and Wei Ying turning around with the biggest smile on his face. And honestly, I love that, because I was scared that one of the three things would happen. Either they'd marry one or both of them off to girls, they'd kill one of them, or they'd have them separate forever to pass censorship. Luckily, they did neither of that, and I love the creative solution to this problem. And let's face it really is a problem. As I said in the beginning, I focused on the drama in this video, but I have a few more videos planned. First, I'm working on a separate video series about all the differences between the book and the drama. I'm sure it's already been done, but I want to make it anyway. And secondly, I want to talk about my fanfiction. Yes, The Untamed sparked my desire to write fanfiction. I've never really done it before, and I don't know if I ever will again, but it was a lot of fun and I'm quite proud of it. It's basically a sequel to the main story, but I'll talk more about it in my video. To me, The Untamed was a gateway drug, not only to other dramas, because now I can't stop watching Chinese dramas with the occasional Japanese and Korean drama, but also to wuxia and xianxia books. I feel like I found my absolute favorite genre of all time, and I've honestly never been happier. Before that, my favorite genre was shonen, by the way, but it's missing one key element: ken and gay relationships. How about you? Have you watched the drama, or the anime, or read the comic or the book? What are your thoughts on The Untamed? Let me know in the comments below. Like, really, tell me. I want to talk about this. I need to talk about this. If listening to random people talking about random stuff on the internet appeals to you, leave a like and subscribe. If listening to random people talking about random stuff on the internet appeals to you, leave a like and subscribe. And if you have any topics you'd like to hear me ramble about, leave your suggestion in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next one. Bye!